Good morning. I would like to draw the attention of PG English Semester 4 students. We were discussing the American poets before the closure of the college due to this coronavirus. So I thought let's do some digital learning on Songs of Myself by Walt Whitman. Songs of Myself is an epic poem by Walt Whitman which essentially talks of America, Americans and Americanness of 19th century. It also talks of self containing the whole world. Well, when I say the self containing the whole world, a very apt Indian example, Eastern example can be quoted here from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In the 11th chapter, Lord Krishna shows his full personality to Arjun. When I say full personality, I mean that he contains the entire universe. So, a self containing the whole world. It's a beautiful example. The second example, my students, because we all are very familiar with Indian contexts, when Mother Yashoda asked Lord Krishna, the baby Krishna, to open the mouth and show if he has eaten the clay. Initially he refuses, and after that when he opens his mouth and he shows to Mother Yashoda in his mouth could see the whole universe. Again, this is an example of self containing the whole world. In fact, these are the songs of myself. What Walt Whitman has written is not song of myself only, it is the songs of myselves. One constituting many. Now, when I say songs of myself, this gives this epic poem a universal appeal. It is a cataloging of mystical experiences. You are prescribed 10 sections of this long poem. Now, these 10 sections prescribed to you basically deals in mystical journey and awakening of self. Mysticism is the belief that one can reach complete truth and knowledge of God or gods by prayer, thought, and development of the spirit. But what is awakening of self? Well, awakening of self means when one awakens to others and higher level of consciousness, expanding view of self to embrace the whole mankind. I repeat. Awakening of self means when one awakens to others and higher level of consciousness, expanding view of self to embrace the whole mankind. So we know why this poem is so relevant, so much celebrated even today. And my dear students, in the present context, when the whole world is fighting with this coronavirus, and we know how the superpower America is under such a huge distress because of this disease, I think Walt Whitman had visualized certain things way back in 19th century. Well, to continue with the discussion, what I have decided, I will do the recitation of the poem. I'll recite the poem and briefly give you the summary and the theme of that particular section. So you have to patiently listen to first the recital and then to the summary. So let's go ahead. The first one. I celebrate myself and sing myself. And what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. My tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air, born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. I, now 37 years old in perfect health, begin, hoping to cease not till death. Creeds and schools in abeyance, retiring back a while, sufficed at what they are, but never forgotten, I harbor for good or bad. I permit to speak at every hazard, nature without check with original energy. Now let's see. What is the poet trying to aim at? This poem celebrates the poet's self. But while the I is the poet himself, it is at the same time universalized. I told you in the beginning, it has a wonderful universal appeal. The poet will sing myself, but what I assume, you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. We have to understand at the level of identification and universality. The poet loafs on the grass and invites his soul to appear. He relates that he was formed from this soil, for he was born here, as were his parents, grandparents, and great grandparents. So here we get the feeling of the son of the soil. He is 37 years old and in perfect health. He hopes to continue his celebration of self until his death. He will let nature speak without check with original energy. So, this is what we see in the first section. Now we move to the second one. Houses and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. I breathe the fragrance myself and know it will like it. The distillation would intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. The atmosphere is not a perfume. It has no taste of the distillation, it is odorless. It is for my mouth forever. I am in love with it. I will go to the bank by the wood and become undisguised and naked. I am mad for it to be in contact with me. The smoke of my own breath echoes, ripples, buzzed whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch, and wine. My respiration and inspiration, the beating of my heart, the passing of blood and air through my lungs, the sniff of green leaves and dry leaves, and of the shore and dark-colored sea rocks, and of hay in the barn, the sound of the belched words of my voice, loose to the edges of the wind, a few light kisses, a few embraces, a reaching round of arms, the play of shine and shade on the trees as the supple boughs wag, the delight alone or in the rush of the streets or along the fields and hillsides, the feeling of health, the full noon trill, the song of me rising from bed and meeting the sun. Have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to learn to read? Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the spectres in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor takes things from me. You shall listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. Well, in the second section, what we notice in section 2, the self, asserting its identity, declares its separateness from civilization and its closeness to nature. Houses and rooms are full of perfume, Whitman says. Perfumes are symbols of other individual selves. But outdoors, the earth's atmosphere denotes the universal self. The poet is tempted to let himself be submerged by other individual selves, but he is determined to maintain his individuality. So, what we have noticed in the second section, poet, while maintaining the self, wants to identify with the whole world. Moreover, my dear students, I would like to take you back to the poem The Eve of St. Agnes, which you had learnt in Degree 1 English Honours. This particular section 2 is very Keatsian. Here we notice the poet expresses the joy he feels through his senses. He is enthralled by the ecstasy of his physical sensations. He can enjoy each of the five senses: tasting, hearing, smelling, touching, and seeing, and even more, the process of breathing, the beating of his heart, and the feeling of health. He invites the reader to stop this day and night with him in order to discover the origin of all poems. Well, so section 2 we have noticed is full of Keatsian echoes. Now we move to section 3. Please pay attention to the poem. I have heard what the talkers were talking, the talk of the beginning and the end. But I do not talk of the beginning or the end. There was never any more inception than there is now, nor any more youth or age than there is now, and will never be any more perfection than there is now, nor any more heaven or hell than there is now. Urge and urge and urge. Always the procreant urge of the world. Out of the dimness, opposite equals advance. Always substance and increase, always sex. Always a knit of identity. Always distinction. Always a breed of life. To elaborate is no avail. Learned and unlearned feel that it is so. Sure as the most certain sure, plumb in the uprights, well entreated, braced in the beams, stout as a horse, affectionate, haughty, electrical. I and this mystery here we stand. Clear and sweet is my soul, and clear and sweet is all that is not my soul. Lack one lacks both, and the unseen is proved by the seen, till that becomes unseen and receives proof in its turn, showing the best and dividing it from the worst. Age vexes age. Knowing the perfect fitness and equanimity of things, while they discuss, I am silent, and go bathe and admire myself. Welcome is every organ an attribute of me, and of any man hearty and clean. Not an inch, nor a particular of an inch is vile, and none shall be less familiar than the rest. I am satisfied. I see, dance, laugh, sing, as the hugging and loving bedfellow sleeps at my side through the night, and withdraws at the peep of the day with stealthy tread, leaving me baskets covered with white towels, swelling the house with their plenty. Shall I postpone my expectations, and realization, and scream at my eyes that they turn from gazing after and down the road, and forthwith cipher and show me a cent, exactly the value of one and exactly the value of two, and which is ahead. In continuation, I'd like to read the section 4 because the theme runs. Section 4. Trippers and askers surround me. People I meet, the effect upon me of my early life, or the ward and city I live in, or the nation. The latest dates, discoveries, inventions, societies, authors old and new, my dinner, dress, associates, looks, compliments, dues, the real or fancied indifference of some man and woman I love, the sickness of one of my folks or of myself, or ill doing or loss, or lack of money, or depressions or exaltations, battles, the horrors of fratricidal war, the fever of doubtful news, the fitful events. These come to me days and nights and go from me again. But they are not the me, myself. Apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am. Stands amused, complacent, compassionating, idle, unitary, looks down, inerect, or bends an arm on an impalpable certain rest, looking with the side curved head curious what will come next. Both in and out of the game and watching and wondering at it. Backward I see, in my own days, where I sweated through fog with linguists and contenders. I have no mockings or arguments, I witness and wait. Well, why I said we need to see the section 3 and 4 together, because in these third and fourth sections, Whitman chides the talkers, trippers, and askers for wasting their time discussing the beginning and the end, and the latest dates, discoveries, inventions, societies. More important is the eternal procreant urge of the world. He prepares himself for the union of the body with his soul. I witness and wait. As his soul is clear and sweet, so are all the other parts of his body. And everyone's bodies, not an inch is vile, and none shall be less familiar than the rest. So, again, a wonderful example of unification we find in this particular section 3 and 4. Now we move to section 5. I believe in my I believe Sorry, my dear students, despite the fact that I have got a bad throat, I again try to connect with you. So, we were discussing the poem Songs of Myself. Now we move to section 5. First, I would like to again recite the poem and then the theme and the substance. Section 5. I believe in you, my soul, and other I must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. Loaf with me on the grass, loose the stop from your throat. Not words, not music or rhyme I want, not custom or lecture, not even the best. Only the lull I like, the hum of your valved voice. I mind how once we lay such a transparent summer morning, how you settle your heart athwart my hips and gently turned over upon me, and parted the shirt from my bosom bone and plunged your tongue to my bare stripped heart, and reached till you left my beard, and reached till you held my feet, swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that pass all the argument of the earth. And I know that the hand of God is the promise of my own, and I know that the Spirit of God is the brother of my own, and that all the men ever born are also my brothers, and the women born, and the women are my sisters and lovers, and that a kelson of the creation is love, and limitless are leaves stiff or drooping in the fields, and brown ants in the little wells beneath them, and mossy scabs of the worm fence, heaped stones, elder, mullein, and poke weed. Section 5 is the poet's ecstatic revelation of union with his soul. He has a feeling of fraternity and oneness with God and his fellow men. To quote, "And I know that the hand of God is the promise of my own, and I know that the Spirit of God is the brother of my own." Unquote. And a vision of love. Again, quote, "And a kelson, an important structural part of a ship of the creation is love. This union brings him peace and joy." So we see again that the theme of union with the soul runs in section 5. Now let's move to section 6. Section 6 is very important. So please focus and pay your attention. A child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I, I guess it must be the flag of my disposition, out of hopeful green stuff woven, or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift and remembrance, a scented gift and remembrancer designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corners, that we may see and remark and say whose. Or I guess the grass is itself a child, the produced babe of the vegetation. Or I guess it is a uniform hieroglyphic, or it means sprouting alike in broad zones and narrow zones, growing among black folks as among white. Knock, duck hole, congressman, cuff. I give them the same. I receive them the same. And now it seems to me the beautiful uncut hair of graves. Tenderly will I use the curling grass. It may be you transpire from the breast of young men. It may be, if I had known them, I would have loved them. It may be you are from old people or from offspring taken soon out of their mother's laps. And here you are the mother's laps. This grass is very dark to be from the white heads of old mothers, darker than the colorless beards of old men, dark to come from under the faint red roofs of mouths. Oh, I perceive, after all, so many uttering tongues. And I perceive they do not come from the roofs of mouths for nothing. I wish I could translate the hints about the dead young men and women, and the hints about old men and mothers, and the offspring taken soon out of the laps. What do you think has become of the young and old men? And what do you think has become of the women and children? They are alive and well somewhere. The smallest, the smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life and does not wait at the end to arrest it. And sees the moment life appeared, all goes onward and outward, nothing collapses. And to die is different from what anyone supposed and luckier. So this was section 6 we just recited. Section 6 presents the first significant transition in the poem and introduces the central symbol in Song of Myself. That's why, my dear students, I told you it's very important. A child appears with both hands full of leaves from the fields and asks the poet, "What is the grass?" The poet at first feels incapable of answering this question but continues thinking about it. He muses that perhaps the grass is itself a child, or maybe it is the handkerchief of the Lord. Here, the grass is a symbol of the divinity latent in the ordinary, common life of man, and it is also a symbol of the continuity inherent in the life death cycle. No one really dies. Even the smallest sprout shows there is really no death, and all goes onward and outward. And to die is different from what anyone supposed. So, a new meaning and significance is given to death. Here, the story of eternity has been described in this particular section, the cycle of life and death. Now we move to section 7. Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her it is just as lucky to die, and I know it. I pass death with the dying and birth with it, with the new washed babe, and am not contained between my hat and boots, and pursue manifold objects, no two alike and everyone good. The earth good and the stars good, and their adjuncts all good. I am not an earth, nor an adjunct of an earth. I am the mate and companion of people, all just as immortal and fathomless as myself. They do not know how immortal, but I know. Every kind for itself and its own, for me, mine male and female, for me, those that have been boys and that love women, for me, the man that is proud and feels how it stings to be slighted, for me, the sweetheart and the old maid, for my mothers and the mothers of mothers, for me, lips that have smiled, eyes that have shed tears, for me, children and the begetters of children. Undrape. You are not guilty to me, nor stale, nor discarded. I see through the broadcloth and gingham, whether or no, and am around, tenacious, acquisitive, tireless, and cannot be shaken away. So, this is section 7. Let's again focus on the theme of this particular section. Again, while reciting this section, I remembered Bhagavad Gita. If birth is the matter of celebration, so should be the death, because both are the ultimate truth. What Whitman has focused on this important point in this section. In section 7, the poet signifies his universal nature, which finds it just as lucky to die as to be born. The universal self finds both the earth good and the stars good. The poet is part of everyone around him. He sees all and condemns nothing. So, this is, seeing good in everything. And this gives us the message of oneness and unity of the soul. Now we will move to section 8, 9, and 10. 8, 9, and 10 somehow have more or less the same theme running up. Well, I would say that up to 16 the same theme runs, but as up to 10 it has been prescribed to you, so we would like to focus only on 8, 9, and 10. So let's go to number 8. The little one sleeps in its cradle. I lift the gaze and look a long time, and silently brush away flies with my hand. The youngster and the red-faced girl turn aside up and Bushy Hill. I peeringly viewed them from the top. The suicide sprawls on the bloody floor of the bedroom. I witness the corpse with its dabbled hair. I note where the pistol has fallen, the blab of the paved tires of carts, slough of boot soles, talk of the promenders, the heavy omnibus, the driver with his interrogating thumb, and clank of the shod horses on the granite floor, the snow sleighs, clinking shouted jokes, pelts of snowballs, the hurrah for popular favorites, the fury of roused mobs, the flap of the curtained litter, a sick man inside borne to the hospital, the meeting of enemies, the sudden oath, the blows and fall, the excited crowd, the policeman with his star quicking, quickly working his passage to the center of the crowd, the impassive stones that receive and return so many echoes, what groans of overfed or overstarved, who fall sunstruck or in fits. What exclamations of women taken suddenly, who hurry home and give birth to babes. What living and varied speech is always vibrating here, what howls restrained by decorum. Arrests of criminals, slides, adulterous offers made, acceptances, rejection with convex lips. I mind them, or the show or resonance of them. I come and I depart. Section 9 is only 8 lines. Uh, Pay attention. The big door of the country barn stand open and ready. The dried grass of the harvest time loads the slow-drawn wagon. The clear light plays on the brown, grey, and green interchanged. The armfuls are packed to the sagging mow. I'm there. I help. I came stretched atop of the load. I felt its soft jolts. One leg reclined on the other. I jumped from the cross beams and seized the clover and timothy and roll head over heels and tangle my hair full of wisps. After section 9, we move to the final section, section 10. Well, in comparison to section 9, it is a longer section. So you need to be focused one more time. Alone far in the wilds and mountains I hunt, wandering amazed at my own lightness and glee, in the late afternoon choosing a safe spot to pass the night, kindling a fire and broiling the fresh-killed game, falling asleep on the gathered leaves with my dog and gun by my side. The Yankee clipper is under her sky sails. She cuts the sparkle and scud. My eyes settle the land. I bend at her prow or shout joyously from the deck. The boatmen and clam diggers arose early and stopped for me. I tucked my trouser ends in my boot and went and had a good time. You should have been with us that day round the chowder kettle. I saw the marriage of the trapper in the open air in the far west. The bride was a red girl. Her father and her friends sat near cross-legged and dumbly smoking. They had moccasins to their feet and large thick blankets hanging from their shoulders. On a bank lounged the trapper. He was dressed mostly in skins. His luxuriant beard and curls protected his neck. He held his bride by the hand. She had long eyelashes. Her head was bare, her coarse straight locks descended upon her voluptuous limbs and reached to her feet. The runaway slave came to my house and stopped outside. I heard his motions crackling the twigs on the wood pile. Though the swug half door of the kitchen, I saw him limpsy and weak, and went where he sat on a log and led him in and assured him, and brought water and filled a tub for his sweated body and bruised feet, and gave him a room that entered from my own, and gave him some coarse, clean clothes, and remember perfectly well his revolving eyes and his awkwardness, and remember putting plasters on the galls of his neck and ankles. He stayed with me a week before he was recuperated and passed north. I had him sit next me at table, my fire log leaned in the corner. Now 8, 9 and 10 have been read together. We need to see the running theme in these three sections. Section 8 to 10 consists of a catalogue of all that the poet sees, people of both sexes, all ages, and all conditions, in many different walks of life, in the city, in the country, by the mountain, and by the sea, even animals are included. And the poet not only loves them all, he is part of them all. To quote from one of the sections, and these tend inward to me, and I tend outward to them. And such as it is to be, of these more or less I am. And of these one and all I weave the song of myself. Unquote. Grass, a central symbol of this epic poem, suggests the divinity of common things. The nature and significance of grass unfold the themes of death and immortality, for grass is symbolic on the ongoing cycle of life present in nature, which assures each man of his immortality. Nature is an emblem of God. For God's eternal presence in it is evident everywhere. Grass is the key to the secrets of man's relationship with the divine. It indicates that God is everything and everything is God. These sections deal with the themes of God, life, death, and nature. Their primary aim is to reveal the nature of the poet's journey through life and the spiritual knowledge which he strives for along the way. They reveal an essential element in a mystical experience, the awakening of the poet's self. Song of Myself is a poetical expression of that mystical experience. It arises out of a belief that it is possible to achieve communion with God through contemplation and love without the medium of human reason. It is a way of attaining knowledge of spiritual truths through intuitions. Section 1 to 5 concern the poet's entry into a mystical state, while section 6 up to 16, I would say, describe the awakening of the poet's self to his own universality. So, my dear students, we have, I would still say, briefly discussed this thought provoking long poem of Walt Whitman, Songs of Myself. Grass being the main symbol of the poem, which we know speaks of regeneration, which speaks of cycling and recycling of life and death. So you need to focus on this particular poem, Songs of Myself, carefully and prepare yourself for your forthcoming examination. Best of luck and thank you.